Let's face it, no matter who wins or loses the November 5th presidential election, America will never be the same again. It's going to be forever changed because of those results. In this video, I consider the possibility, and yes, it's a real possibility, that Donald Trump loses, and what reactions or events could be triggered by that outcome. Oh, I'm sure there'll be dancing in the streets and widespread celebration by the Democrats. But what about the other side? If Trump contests the results or claims election fraud, it could galvanize his supporters and create a sense of moral outrage, and who knows where that could lead. The potential for violence or unrest could be closely tied to the actions Trump himself takes. Also, what would an election loss do to Trump's pending court cases and possible jail terms? Where would a Trump loss leave the Republican Party, and for that matter, Fox News? So many things to consider, and we're going to talk about all that here today. As we inch closer to the 2024 presidential elections, there's an unspoken and almost uncomfortable question hanging in the air. What does happen if Donald Trump loses? This isn't just about who wins the presidency. It's about grappling with the potential fallout and understanding what it could mean to America and to the world. The stakes this time around are enormous. The outcome of this election could profoundly impact the future of democracy, the rule of law, and the very fabric of American life. See, Donald Trump isn't your typical political candidate. He's a former president who commands an incredibly loyal following, and he's already shown that he's more than willing to push the boundaries of our political norms. His influence reaches far beyond the usual scope of any campaign, making this election unlike anything we've seen in recent memory. So let's dive into what might happen if Trump doesn't come out on top, and how he could respond, how his supporters might react, and what this could mean for the future of the country. Okay, this will be fast, just a quick commercial. I'm a 70-year-old trying to make it on a platform and a world that's dominated by millennials and video game players. Listen, if you're enjoying this video so far, I need your help. I do this all myself, and I need you to subscribe to the channel, like this video, comment on it, and share it with others. Please do that. It's the only way I can keep making content. Thanks, and now back to the video. First of all, let's talk about Trump's stance on accepting election results overall. Every time he's been asked if he'll accept the outcome in 2024, his answer has always come with one catch. Yes, but only if the election is honest and fair. Now, on the surface, that sounds pretty reasonable. Who wouldn't want an honest and fair election, right? But the real question is, who gets to decide what's honest and fair, and what does that actually mean? Look back at 2020, and you'll see a pattern that's hard to ignore. Despite widespread agreement from state election boards, federal agencies, and law courts that the election results was fair and the results were legitimate, Trump and his allies have kept insisting, and still do today, without any evidence that the election was stolen. These claims have been debunked repeatedly, but they still persist, fueled by a landscape that thrives on amplifying conspiracy theories and misinformation. Given this history, it's pretty tough to imagine that Trump or his supporters would consider any 2024 result fair if it didn't mean Donald Trump winning. That kind of conditional acceptance sets up a potentially dangerous scenario. We could find ourselves in a situation where millions of Americans could reject the election outcome, not because there's actual evidence of any wrongdoing, but because one man says so. This could seriously undermine trust in democratic institutions and throw into question something as fundamental as the peaceful transfer of power. Trump's not likely to quietly go into the night. Even now, with the election still months away, he's already laying the groundwork to contest the results. He's repeatedly claimed, without any proof, that Democrats are rigging the election, and he's told his supporters time and again that he's guaranteed to win unless the results are fraudulent. Now, this isn't just typical political bluster. It's a calculated strategy on his part to undermine the entire election process and to cast doubt on the outcome before a single vote has even been counted. If Trump loses, we can expect him to challenge the results, possibly in multiple states. He might call on his supporters to protest, to rally against what he will undoubtedly describe as another stolen election. This could lead to a drawn-out legal battle with challenges in the courts, and with Trump's appointed Supreme Court, who knows where that could lead. Recounts, maybe even efforts to overturn the results through legislative or administrative means. But the legal battles are only one part of the picture. The bigger question is, how will Trump's base react? We've already seen how quickly rhetoric can turn into action. The events of January 6, 2021 are a stark reminder of what can happen when political leaders fan the flames of anger and resentment. If Trump loses and refuses to concede, there's a very real possibility that his supporters could take to the streets in protests. And these protests could start out peacefully, but there's a risk they could turn violent, especially if people genuinely believe that another election was stolen from them. The potential for widespread unrest isn't something we can afford to ignore. We could see clashes between protesters and law enforcement, or even between pro-Trump supporters and counter-protesters. In the worst-case scenario, this could escalate into levels of civil unrest that we haven't seen in decades, maybe even leading to localized violence or attempts at insurrection. The stability of our society could be at risk with far-reaching consequences. It's important to consider Trump's base, those millions of Americans who have stuck with him through thick and thin, and how they might react if he lost. Trump's MAGA supporters have proven themselves to be incredibly loyal, usually more so to him personally than to the Republican Party as a whole. They believe in his message. If Trump loses in 2024 and refuses to concede, it's likely that many of his supporters will follow his lead, rejecting the results and viewing the incoming administration as illegitimate. This could end up manifesting itself in many different ways. Really, only time will tell. Aside from any reactions or protests to the election results, there's a whole nother aspect to consider: the legal consequences to Donald Trump personally. As we know, Trump is facing multiple legal challenges, including ongoing federal charges, massive financial penalties, and even possible jail time. If he loses the election, he'll be in a much more vulnerable position, as he'll no longer have the same political protection or the ability to argue that the charges against him are nothing more than part of a politically motivated witch hunt. So what happens then? If he loses, the legal process could pick up speed, with Trump potentially facing trial on serious charges. The outcome of these legal battles could have significant implications, not just for Trump himself, but for the entire political landscape. There is a possibility that Trump might try to negotiate a plea deal to avoid any lengthy trial or the possibility of any prison time. This could involve agreeing to certain conditions, like stepping away from politics or staying silent on some issues. But knowing Trump's history, it's hard to imagine him going quietly. More likely, he would continue to be a vocal and polarizing figure, using his legal battles to rally his supporters and maintain his influence over the Republican Party. There could also be another issue and a huge controversy if incoming President Kamala Harris or outgoing President Joe Biden consider granting Trump a pardon for the federal crimes and charges he's currently facing. On the surface, granting Trump a pardon might seem like it would set a terrible precedent. It could send the message that powerful, wealthy individuals can avoid accountability for their actions simply because of their status. This could be incredibly damaging to the very principle of justice, which is supposed to apply equally to everyone, regardless of their wealth or political influence. For the average American, this could feel like a slap in the face. Most people facing prosecutions don't have the luxury of a pardon, no matter how minor or severe their crimes might be. Pardoning Trump could deepen feelings of inequality and injustice, further eroding trust in the legal system and the government institutions. The idea that there's one set of rules for the elite and another for everyone else could deepen societal divisions and fuel resentment. Pardoning Trump would be seen as extreme favoritism, more of a political maneuver than a judicial decision. It would raise serious questions about the integrity of the justice system and the fairness of the law. The risk here is that it could encourage a culture where political figures feel emboldened to act any way they want to with impunity, knowing they might be shielded from the consequences by their allies. On the other hand, there might be some arguments in favor of a pardon, though these would definitely be rooted more in pragmatism than in justice. The country is deeply polarized, and millions of Americans staunchly support Trump, believing that the charges against him were politically motivated all along. A pardon, while undoubtedly controversial, might also be seen as a way to pacify these supporters and prevent further unrest. The potential for violent protests or even civil unrest can't be ignored, especially if there's any question of Trump being jailed. His rhetoric and influence over his base are powerful, and a legal battle that ends with him facing prison time could ignite tensions across the country. A pardon could be viewed as a necessary compromise to avoid this scenario where tensions boil over into widespread violence. Additionally, pardoning Trump could be framed as a step towards healing the nation's wounds. By choosing not to further pursue legal actions, the incoming administration might aim to de-escalate the political conflict and foster a new sense of reconciliation. This could be seen as putting the country's stability and unity above the desire for retribution. Beyond the immediate consequences, we also have to think about the long-term implications for Trump's political allies, media partners, and the very future of the MAGA movement. If Trump loses in 2024, it could have significant ramifications for those who've aligned themselves closely with him. For some Republicans, a Trump loss could signal the very end of their political careers. So many have tied their future so closely to Trump that they may struggle to remain relevant without his leadership. They might find themselves facing primary challenges from within the party as the GOP grapples with its identity in the post-Trump era. However, the MAGA movement isn't likely to disappear overnight either. Trump has built a powerful and devoted base that isn't just about one man. It's about a set of ideas and grievances that resonate deeply with a significant portion of the American electorate. Even if Trump is no longer at the helm, the movement he created could continue to shape the future of the Republican Party. We might see the rise of new leaders who seek to carry the MAGA torch, perhaps with a different style or approach, but still appealing to the same base of voters. Alternatively, the movement could splinter with different factions vying for control. Either way, the influence of Trumpism is likely to linger in American politics for many years to come. Finally, let's take a step back and look at the broader implications for American democracy if Trump loses in 2024. The past few years have exposed several deep vulnerabilities in the American democratic system. Vulnerabilities that could be further exacerbated depending on how this election plays out. The way Trump and his supporters react could have lasting implications for the country, potentially leading to a period of deep divide and unrest. Hopefully not. One of the most significant risks is the potential erosion of trust in our electoral system. If large segments of the population believe that the elections were rigged or that the results were illegitimate, it undermines the very foundation of democracy, which relies on a peaceful transfer of power and, in effect, the consent of the governed. This could lead to a crisis of legitimacy, where government actions and policies are viewed with suspicion and where the rule of law is increasingly just disregarded. The other concern is the possibility of increased polarization and division. The 2024 election could deepen already stark divides in American society, making it even more difficult than ever to find common ground or to work together on shared challenges. This polarization could lead to gridlock in government, making it harder to address pressing issues like border security, economic inequality, climate change, and health care. There's also the potential for lasting damage to institutions. The judiciary, the Justice Department, the media, and even the military could come under increasing pressure as they are drawn into political battles. If these institutions are perceived as being compromised or politicized, it could weaken our ability to function effectively and to serve as checks and balances on the power of the executive and the legislative branches. At the same time, it could also open the door to a renewed focus on unity and reconciliation as the nation grapples with the aftermath of a contentious and polarizing era. One thing is for certain: whatever happens in November 2024, the effects will be felt far beyond the election itself, shaping the course of American history for years to come. It's more important than ever for people to stay informed, to understand the stakes, and to engage in debate and the democratic process. Whatever the outcome, there has to be a way to move forward together, to heal divisions and to strengthen the foundations of democracy for generations to come. In the end, the outcome of the 2024 elections will likely be about much more than just who sits in the Oval Office. It will be a test of the democratic system itself, a test of whether it can withstand the pressures of a deeply divided society and whether it can continue to function as a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Hi, well, that's it for the video for today. I want to thank all of you, especially those who are still watching right now all the way till the end. It's kind of important that you see it all the way through. This video is focused on what would happen if Donald Trump loses the election. I'm putting together a partner video for it about what happens if Donald Trump wins the election. Just as interesting, just as fascinating, just as concerning in a lot of ways. So I want to thank you all for watching, and the only way to make sure you see my content is to subscribe to the channel. So please do so. Have a great week. Thanks a lot again, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye.